Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, The Economic Question. I'm your host, Axel Ryan, and I'm here with my father, Francois Inzi.
Hello, I'm kind of a general the father and also been talking about these subjects on a daily basis. So we're going to expand on it today on this podcast, this project, and I hope you will like it.
First off, we have some questions or some prompts we're going to talk about. And the first one here is what makes it possible for people to move up in the social class over time? So, with my Google form I posted and had people fill out, it really most of the people who answered it really came down to different racial groups: Asians, blacks, and whites. So through my research, I calculated that 80% of Asians who answered my form were able to move up in the social class. 35.7% of blacks were able to move up in social class, and 37.5% of whites were able to move up in social class. And I think what is pretty interesting here is how the percentage of blacks and percentage of whites are so close together, but then the percentage of Asians are just way greater than all of these. So what do you think about that, Dad?
I usually, when you were doing this project, I think that race would play a role on how people move in the social class. But based on the survey result that we got, I think we don't see a ratio playing a role here because if race had to play a role, mean the gap, the difference between the black and the white would be much closer. But we see that the or might be larger, but we see that the gap is very close. That means race might not play a role into being able to move up in the social class. I think maybe education is a kind of a political question that we're trying to do. Maybe education might be one of the factors that make people to be able to move up the social class.
Yeah, and about like the racial issue, I believe that there is like a silver problem and a racial problem in America, but I think like there are some points that people forget to see because I think like looking from the outside, some people may just associate white people with rich and success, but we also have to realize that the fact that there are still poor white people who aren't getting the income they deserve. So in a way, that's why we kind of see those percents like 35.7 and 37.5. So I think we have to like be aware that there's also some jobs people have that make them not get the income that they really deserve and reach the potential that they actually have.
Yeah, I agree that also the industry that you work in may be a factor that mostly we also learned that even though people were able to move up the social class, one major difference in the survey is that most black people started in the lower class. See, and they were able to move out to the, 35% as the survey say, were able to move out to the middle class. Whereas when you compare, you see that most white will start in the middle class. So that's a major difference too. So I think that's where the race will come into play. That most black people will start over the 10 years start they were in the lower class and they're able to move. Compared to the Asians also, most of them will start, they start their career in the middle class based on people who responded to the survey. So I think that's where the race may come a little bit into play. But when it comes to moving up to the ladder, moving up to the social class, I think yeah, we think education might be the major role player there. Yeah, because most education you have, the more you will start your career in the middle class also.
And in a sense, with like the racial topic in general, it's kind of like a race. Like depending on how you're born, you get like a head start in the race. And unfortunately for people of color and for blacks, we're starting all the way at the bottom, so we have like an uphill battle. While people like whites or Asians, they may start at like the middle of the race and have a less distance to run. So in that case, yeah, it may be a little, the road may be a little harder for some groups in America, but I don't believe that it's completely impossible because I'm pretty sure, and we've seen it ourselves, that there are people who are successful, like Barack Obama and some other entrepreneurs who are black.
Yeah, I agree, and yeah, and that's I agree that it's possible. It's might maybe we might work a little harder to catch up, and that's where the race will play a role. But it's not completely impossible for black people to be successful or to move up to the ladder. Maybe we should also consider the different industry that we work in and see how that also affects, even though we don't have exact data on the different industry. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess we can move on to the next topic, and this one is, what specifically makes the wealth gap so large? So we do see like the road to going to the top may not be the same for everybody, but if we look at who's at the top, we could kind of see it's mostly whites and Asians, and blacks and other minority groups are kind of they have like a lower standard because they can only really, because out of most people who answer my survey, not most of them were only able to get up to the middle class and not be able to earn money enough to be in the upper class. So and I made some infographics by using the source www.census.gov. And one of the facts I've said, 3% 3%. So the lower class earn about 3% of what the top 5% of income earners earn. And I think this is pretty accurate because it kind of shows how like the job you have, because most people who are in the who are the very rich are like CEOs and earn a lot of companies, so they have multiple ways to gain income. But like people, but as you go lower and lower in the social class, people don't have that luxury of having multiple jobs, and they're really just relying on that one job that gives them all the money they need to provide for their families.
Yeah, I say that too, and they say when we survey, you will find out that even though we have a uphill battle to catch up, and as we mentioned earlier, education play a role, but most whites would, since they start already in the middle or in the upper, it's not that hard for them to get to the upper 2% or 3% of income earners, so they're able to move up very quickly. Whereas when we start in the lower and the bottom, we could get to the middle, and it's going to take out, like you see in the survey. We started the survey in over 10 years, 2007 to 2019. So the 10 years we've been able to move up one. I mean, from from the lower to the middle. So it's going to take a lot of time to get up to the top, and it's that's one of the questions that we need to examine a little later and see what we need to do in order to close that gap early. Maybe we need more to try to see the different industry that we need to work in order to make those. So those are the questions that I think the part of what the survey or the next what research or whatever, if I could call that, need to address and to see what we need to do specifically to be able to earn enough money or to be on the top.
And yeah, most definitely. I mean, um, as we were talking here in this episode, we kind of talked a lot about education, and that's also one of the topics in general. So like I feel like for me personally, I think education is more than just going to school and learning what your teachers taught you. It's also a lot of other things, like educating yourself about what's going on in the environment around you. Like I know a lot of NBA players are wearing messages around their backs and they're trying to educate the the people who are viewing the games to vote and create change that will make the world a better place. So I think it's not just like arithmetic and what you learn in the schoolroom, but it's also how you analyze what's going on around you and what you think you could do to change it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that even some of them are talking about equity or equality, educations, and they're talking about different stuff. And I think the messages still are very good. And yeah, as Axel say, it's not really about going to school only. It's about how you apply what you learn in school. And that's the major thing that I think that's what we need. I think that going to school is very important, but what you do after school is more important than just going to school. And I think we need to examine that too. And when we try to really fight this battle or whatever, if I could call it like that.
So yeah, so like in the next topic, what exactly we do to close this gap? I think it's now like I said, not only just in going to school and learning everything what your teacher says, but I think like parents and everybody in general, we should just have that conversation with ourselves or maybe with our kids and with our friends, like what's going on in the world and how do we feel about that? Because at the end of the day, those questions are start working in our heads and we try to figure out the why to all of these. And that why goes into how can we fix it and that how could turn into action. So I think just by questioning the world and questioning what is going on, it will lead to change in general and make the world a better place.
Yeah, I agree. The why would turn into action, and action give you more energy to go ahead, and so that you could be prepared for the battle ahead. And I think we some of the stuff that we also want to address is many people ask the question: is the American dream possible? I mean, I think I will ask you that too. Is American? Do you think American dream is possible?
I think in the sense of the American dream is really about what you think the American dream is. I think that's what we have to answer really before we get into that topic.
No.
And I feel like for me personally, the American dream is not necessarily going from rags to riches, but I think um it's also in general just believing the world better than you first saw it. And I think like in America, because of the that change that happened years ago, and yeah, the country may not be perfect, but like events like the civil rights movement and the change for women's rights, all that stuff happened in America. And sure, and we could go and use that as inspiration to change, not only change America but to change the world.
Yeah, as you well said it, yeah. That will also lead to how we measure, how we discuss what we think American dream is. That's what it is. How do you live? What do you live? How do you live a word? How you found it? It's your impact in what you do in your society, in your community. I think that's what is important. And if you reach your goal, if you have a great impact around you on what you do, then you will, I would say you did your best possible and you maybe live the American dream. And I think, yeah, it's a different level. American dream is no one size fit all. It's individual and as a group. If we see that we're moving and we're making a change, and then you put your little impact or input into building that perfect society that we look for.
And yeah, and when you define the American dream, I think that could be very intertwined with success in general. And I feel like, I guess for most kids I know, especially for me, at first it was like, oh, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I want to be rich. But I feel like just looking at it at a money standpoint won't get you what you want. But I think is trying to figure out what bothers you the most and try to fix that, and then the money comes afterwards as like a reward, a kind of like side effect. So yeah, I feel like it's really finding what you love, and then like all the other benefits will come afterwards.
It's well said, and I think as a young man, you should think about that. And as I talk to other young people, I think the thinking is not necessarily going out there and make a lot of money. It's about finding your what you love, and you find your talents and you try to apply it, and eventually you become successful. To me, success is not really money alone, but it's about having a greater impact in your environment. And if you do that, you will be successful, and eventually you will earn money, and you'll be able to live a successful and a wealthy and happy life. Yeah.
So as we wind down to the last few minutes of this episode, um, just me reflecting on, just us two in general reflecting on, the project itself and what I could have done better. I felt like, definitely if I had more time, I wish I would have got more responses than just 52.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's a good number. It's not even very easy to do survey and to have people to respond to survey, especially survey that involve their life, their salary, their stuff. So 50 is not a bad number, but I think there are some questions that we should have incorporated into the survey that would give us a better data and answer better the question much better, have a clear discuss the topic a little better. And then I think if it's something that we need to do better next time in your survey is to ask some deeper question like education, industry, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
And yeah, and I feel like if I would have had a second chance, maybe I could do another episode and I could do more surveys and find what different problems and what we could actually do to fix them, because now we could, because if I could do that research, we don't need to actually talk everything in a hypothetical standpoint, because we will have that information to further our knowledge in general on the world and the economy. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. I hope everyone liked it, and yeah, have a good day.